Just myself today, Chair.
You're all booked. Tammy then, to contact Tammy, and she will be monitoring throughout the meeting just to make sure that we are quorate at all times, making sure that people are online. The chat function, I would have to ask people not to use the chat function for any comments about what's going on in the meeting at all. The chat function is only for either raising my attention that you wish to speak, or you have any problems that you wish Democratic Services or anything like that to sort out. It's not for commentary on the meeting. The only commentary that I'm going to accept is when people raise their hands and they speak at the meeting. Okay, right, so that's the housekeeping done. So I'm going to go to the agenda now, part 1. Number 1, declarations of interest. Well, we have to have a roll call first, of course, because it's remotely. So Tammy, Rosalind, did you wish to say something? You muted.
I was just going to declare an interest before you said.
Oh, I see. Okay, then. Well, I'll ask Tammy to do the roll call, and to also, at the same time, perhaps, Tam, if you could ask members of the committee if they have any declarations, and that'll save us a bit of time.
Yes, certainly, Chair. Thank you for that. Good morning, members. I'll start with yourself, Chair. Councillor Suzanne Pardison, are you present, and do you have any declarations of interest?
I am present, and I have no declarations of interest. Thank you, Tam.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair, Councillor Sean Percy, please.
Yeah, I'm present and no interest to declare.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. You're awfully quiet there. I did hear you, though. Thank you. Following councillors, Chris Jones. Same questions to you, Councillor Jones. Are you present, and do you have any interest to declare?
Yes, Tammy, I'm present and no interest to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Yes, Tammy, I'm present. I have no interest to declare.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rydian Mason.
Yeah, I'm present, Tammy. And I'd just like to clarify, on item 2, now I did used to reside at 22 Broad Street, but I don't know the applicant because I moved from there like 30 or nearly 40 years ago, so I don't know how long she'd been living there. But I just thought I'd just say that. And for item 3, now I'm vice chair to the applicant's spouse and Sonia, but it has no prejudicial interest in it. No, you know what I mean? But I just thought I'd just announce that. Okay.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor Mason, for those declarations. But we don't think we're going to take no. Yeah.
That's fine, Councillor. You're okay there. Thank you very much, Councillor Scott Bamsey. Councillor Bamsey present. No. Okay. Councillor Ros Davis, please.
Present, presennol, and I declare an interest, item number 1, because I'm a governor of Ysgol Llwyncelyn.
Thank you. That's great. I will send you a form following this meeting. Thank you. Councillor Steve Hunt.
I'm here and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Arwyn Woolcock.
Yes, Chair, I confirm that I'm present and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mark Prothero.
Thank you, Tammy. I confirm that I'm present and I have no interest to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Williams, please.
Present, Chair, with no interest to declare.
Thank you very much. And finally, Councillor Suzanne Renkers.
Present and have no interest to declare.
Thank you. We go on now to the non-voting LDP member, Councillor Annette Wingrave.
I'm here, Tammy.
Thank you, Councillor Wingrave. Planning officers, we have Steve Ball.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We welcome Billy Stark.
Morning, all. Brother. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Megan Thomas.
Morning. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Charlotte Mewburn.
Good morning. Also here.
Thank you, Charlotte. And Chris Davis. No, Chris. Okay. Democratic Services Officers, we just have myself this morning, Tammy Davis. I'll be taking the notes. Highways Officers, Terry Davis. Terry, you're on mute.
Present.
Thank you. Legal officers, Mike Shaw.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, members.
Good morning. And Rebecca McGregor.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. Do we have local ward member Saif Rahman? Councillor Rahman was present earlier, Chair, so I don't know if he's going to dip back and forth.
Okay.
Well, Chair, if I may, he did speak to me yesterday and he wouldn't be able to make it today. And also Sharon Freegard won't be able to make it today. So it looks like I'm a one-man band this morning.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Keogh. We have registered to speak for the 21 Broad Street item. The applicant, Samara Richards.
Yes, I am.
Thank you. That's great. I believe I've got everybody there. If not, please speak now. No, there we go, Chair. That's complete.
Thank you very much. And can you confirm that we are quorate for this meeting?
We are quorate, Chair.
Thank you very much, Tatman.
Thank you.
Samara, welcome. Thank you for showing interest in our planning committee today. I know you have a pertinent item that you're interested in and you've registered to speak. What I will do when it comes to the time is you will have 5 minutes to speak. I should point out that you can't actually participate in the meeting. So whatever you want to say about your application, say in your 5 minutes, because you won't have an opportunity then to come back later on because you only get 5 minutes. Okay, is that clear?
That is, okay. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll go through that when we come to that item, and we do have one item before that. So I'll go back to the agenda and go to item 2, which is minutes of the previous meeting. These can be found on pages 5 to 8. I'm going to assume that everybody's read all the papers, and of course today we do have an amendment sheet as well, which you will need to take into account alongside the reports. Has anybody not had the amendment sheet? No. Okay. So the minutes of the previous meeting are on page 5 to 8. May I have someone to propose they are a true record?
I move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Keogh. Someone to second, please. Anyone? Councillor Prothero, thank you very much. Okay.
Sorry, Chair, I was on mute.
That's okay. Anybody disagree at all? No, those minutes are ratified then. So I'll move on. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having a flash message there. Okay, so I'll move on to item 3, request for site visits. I would have understood that, you know, it's going to be very difficult to do site visits at the moment. So anybody that would have been interested, we would have perhaps taken photographs, but I don't see anybody at all. Okay. Then item 4, which is our first of our 3 items for decision today, is application P2020/0752 Ysgol, Ystalyfera, a 2G sports pitch, and this can be found on pages 9 to 24, but also the amendment sheet there is a condition change on the amendment sheet, so please take that into account as well. So, Mr. Ball, please would you take the committee through the application?
Of course. Good morning, everyone. I've shared my screen as normal. If you can confirm, Chair, when you can view that.
Yes, I can see that. Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Okay, bear with me 1 second. I'm trying to work out my screen so I can actually see my report as well at the same time. Right. So this is application P2020/0752. As the Chair's indicated, it's for the construction of a 2G sports pitch with associated floodlighting and enclosures and associated works on land at Ysgol, Ystalyfera, and the image on in your report and also on the screen now indicates the site itself. The site itself is detached from the wider school grounds. It's on the opposite side of the Amenity, and it's the playing fields. And the actual site itself is identified on the drawing you have in red, and that shows the extent of it next to the existing compound that's been used related to building works, and also as you can see on the left-hand side of the next image I've shared, so you've got the existing multi-use games area in use for the compound, and you've got the existing playing fields with the rugby pitch. So it's on the existing site opposite. What you will note on the left-hand side here is this is the existing connection over the river towards the main school, which I'll talk about later. And just because I've got the picture on the bottom right-hand corner is the indication of the fencing that will be proposed around the pitch, just in line with the fencing you'd see around all of these kind of these facilities. The site itself, in terms of its relationship, you've got residential properties to the north, which are on Glantuch, through which you've also got an access point that serves Abertuch Farm at the bottom, and it also serves as a cycleway footway that takes people across through the fields and across the bridge into the school. These properties here are approximately 95 to 100 metres away to the north. There are some residential properties on the left-hand side opposite the river, but there's also a tree screen between, so they're well screened from the site. As the report indicates, and you will already have had previous applications come for a number of schools, including extensions and changes at Ysgol Llwyncelyn over the last couple of years. This relates to the 21st Century Schools programme with the long-term strategic investment. And this is part of that proposal, which is obviously to provide for a floodlit 2G artificial surface to both provide facilities for the school itself and also for external use by the community, so it has a dual benefit. The pitch dimension is shown on page 11, and you'll note from the image in front again that what you have floodlights that are sited on the corners and each of the sides of the property of the proposed pitch, so 8 number floodlights at a height of 15 metres. The scheme itself has had regards to a number of different constraints, primarily in terms of some concerns in terms of the potential for external lighting spread, both in terms of ecology and residential amenity, and that will be looked later. On page 12 also indicates that, as I say, it's for community use as well, and the intention is to have a booking system which provides community groups the ability to use this out of school times. Issues in terms of the hours of use of it, and in terms of issues to do with the lighting will be covered later, in terms of residential amenity and the conditions that are imposed as a consequence. The report indicates that on page 14 we have had a number of objections or representations submitted to us expressing some concern about the impact on character, impact on biodiversity, specific bats, and the issues I've just talked about in terms of amenity and lighting and noise, but also some concerns locally in terms of parking. So each of those are the primary matters that we'll be considering today. So page 16 talks about the principle of development, and while it is outside the settlement boundary, it is within the existing playing fields, and in terms of change the existing use because it's potentially intensifying and creating an artificial surface for it, but there's not considered to be any objection to the principle of enhancing those recreational facilities for the school under policy SC1, which is the settlement boundary policy. In terms of visual amenity, these kind of facilities are often seen all around, well, certainly all around NPT, but all around the country in terms of the provision of these enhanced kind of facilities serving schools and communities, and therefore subject to the issues in terms of the enclosures and the floodlighting to make sure they have no adverse impact in themselves. It's not an unusual change in character to the extent that while it does change, it's not considered to have any adverse impact upon visual amenity. In terms of residential amenity, I'm just going to, in your report, you've got a nice pretty picture, as I like to say, in terms of showing the extent of the light spread. And one of the things that we always seek to ensure in planning, and lighting designers always seek to ensure as a consequence, is that the degree of any light spread beyond the pitches is controlled to an acceptable level, so that there would not be any unacceptable or adverse impact on nearby properties. So the image on the screen in front of you is that you won't be able to see completely, but the one on the left is effectively what's called a lux plot, and it indicates the degree of lighting within the site and how it will change as a consequence of the cows and the shields that are put around the lighting columns. and the colour plots in terms of the right hand image and the ones in your report indicates that in terms of in a more easily understandable way, effectively, which shows the green parts are quite clearly where you're playing on a pitch is very, very light, and then it drops away quite significantly as you go outside the site. And just because I thought some of you might be interested, it shows you've got up to 175, 345 in terms of per down very quickly to around the 20s and the 40s, and then down to 1.5 and 2, and then down to below 1 very quickly outside. And that indicates that significant drop will make sure, both in itself and because of a significant distance from the residential receptors, that there'd be no unacceptable impact on residential amenity from light spread. In addition, I'll cover it now very briefly, is that there is sensible ecological boundary and quite close to the site on the top, and our ecologist has made sure and given advice to the applicants before submission to ensure that the impact on the particularly bats that use those corridors would be protected, and they are quite happy because of the degree of illumination and protection, as well as the hours of use of the lighting, that there'd be no unacceptable impact upon the ecology as well in that regard. Other matters in terms of residential amenity, we talked about the hours of use earlier. There will be hours of use imposed, and a condition says that it can be used from 8:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night, Mondays to Saturdays, and from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Sundays. There will obviously be a need both in itself to control that because of the use of the pitch, but particularly to ensure that the lighting is only used when needed and when the pitch is in use, to ensure that it protects both visual and residential amenity, and therefore a condition is imposed requiring that you've got an extra 10 minutes at the end of play, so to speak, to get off the pitch before it turns dark, and that those conditions are considered to protect residential and indeed visual amenity, and therefore there's no unacceptable impact as a consequence. One of the other concerns that's been expressed locally relates to the impact on parking and highway safety. The main concerns with these kind of facilities is that people who will be using the facilities outside of the school could potentially indiscriminately park within the nearby residential area, which could, for example, be in Glantwch, it could be along Glanaravan on the front, or anywhere in these areas with potential impacts on neighbours or indeed highway safety. So what this plan on the screen shows, you've got in the blue line, the red line indicates the existing route for people into the school itself, which has got a car parking facility, and the blue line shows vehicles out. But to serve the school will be required through the condition it requires a parking management plan, and that condition 3 is the one that's been updated slightly within your amendment sheet to make it clear that this car parking area needs to be available at all times when it's being used outside of school times. So therefore people will be able and required to use this car park and then walk onto Glanaravan, up the road and across the bridge into the facility and obviously back again. Now, clearly we can't necessarily rigidly enforce every single person using this facility to make sure they must use that car park. But what the parking management plan does is ensure that the applicant, in this case the school or the board of governors and the head teacher, would be required to give that parking management plan, which would in itself make sure that whenever they're booking out the facility, that they are emphasising to all people who book the facility how they should be parking and using the facility. And associated with that is condition 4, which is an opportunity for, should complaints arise in respect of indiscriminate parking, it's a control mechanism for us to get a survey undertaken and for any recommendations made within that to be implemented to mitigate any identified impacts. And in terms of parking and highway safety, officers, including the head of engineering and transport, are satisfied that those conditions would ensure there would be no unacceptable impact on parking and highway safety in the locality. Finally, the report on page 20 talks about the fact that there's no objection from ecology. Similarly, there's no issues in terms of flood risk and drainage. So page 21 onwards, and as supplemented by the amendment sheet, indicates that the application is recommended for approval subject to those conditions. There are some photos which I'll leave on the screen and I can go to if members wish, but that concludes my positive recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. We do not have any registered speakers for this item, so I'm going to go straight to members of the committee. Does anybody have any questions on this item, please, if they would indicate? Just let's show participants. Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I firstly say that I have read the full report with the amendment sheet.
Great.
I'm fully supportive of this recommendation here today. I think it'll add something very special to certainly to the communities within the located development site. It will also, as Mr. Ball said, have a wider reaching attribute for everybody else that will be able to use it. So it's a very positive planning report application here this morning. Just a couple of points I want to clear up with Mr. Ball. As I said, I'm fully supportive of it, but I just wanted to, just for clarification and consistency, we mentioned that it's defined by policy SC1 and it's outside settlement limits. And I know every application is judged on its own merits, but I've seen applications being refused when there's only a foot or a metre outside. It's just when do we feel, obviously, this is an excellent application, as I said, when do we feel that settlement limit rules or policies can be broken for something not just like this, maybe in other aspects? And I wanted to ask one further question. The lighting situation has been covered. I did notice there was concerns with the lighting. However, is there anything that we should have done about sound, about levels? Because this is a 7-day-a-week facility and out in the countryside, and far from me to not want children and young people and others, sporting groups, to enjoy. But I just wondered, sound does carry a lot. I just wondered, was there any checks, or I couldn't see it in the report, Chair, so forgive me if I've missed it, and Mr. Ball probably would point it out. But is there a sound level? Because I do know from my experience as a planning committee member that our environment committee take levels of noise quite important within our Neath Talbot council, you know. So those are just a few points, but like I said, I'm fully supportive of this. I think it's an excellent application, and I will be voting in favour. But if I could just have a couple of answers to those couple of questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Sorry, Mr. Ball, if you could just answer those queries, please.
Yes, of course. Thanks to Councillor Hunt. In terms of the settlement limits in policy SC1, the report concludes that this is considered to be in accordance with policy SC1, fitting within the constraints, primarily because it's an existing playing field site. And so you might remember the school up in Kimler, the Kevin Sison school application was for the new school, which was on the playing fields, which also was outside of settlement limits. And it's one of the, I think when we made it in the LDP those years ago, we excluded playing fields for those reasons, and yet they are still part and parcel of the school site. And because this is a playing field site and it's recreational facilities, it's considered to be part and parcel of the use already, and on that basis it's considered to be in accordance. In terms of other developments, obviously we're not here to talk about those today, but there are exceptions within policy SC1 that allow consideration. But if you don't meet those exceptions, then you need to have effectively there need to be other material considerations to outweigh what is harm by reason of failing to comply with the settlement limits policy. But as I say, this one is considered to be in accordance with policy SC1. And in terms of issues of sound and noise levels, they have definitely been considered. There was a noise management submission from the applicant. Page 19 doesn't go in a lot of detail, primarily because it's the relationship with nearby residential properties, because they're 100 metres away and opposite and screened by the trees on the other side of the river. Environmental health is satisfied with the application, and it does emphasise that, you know, concerns have been raised about noise and nuisance, but because it is playing fields, there aren't any existing restrictions. We will put conditions to prevent its use after 9 o'clock. We're quite satisfied that amenity would be protected as a consequence, and there wouldn't be any need to put specific noise limits on, not least because it's quite difficult, I think, for recreational users to do that. They, you know, I'm a football coach and everything, and I know there's a variation between me playing football yesterday with men and making one noise, and kids making a different noise, much more screechy noises. They're very different kind of activities and noises, but actually they're not that significant unless you're really, really close up. And because these are 100 meters away, we are more than satisfied that there would be no unacceptable impacts, especially having regard to the fact that they've already got the recreational use of the site. And I would also add that Kevin Sizen school in Kilmer we approved that's being constructed at the moment, that had playing pitches quite significantly closer. And again, subject to controller conditions, we were more than happy that wouldn't have an impact. So with that context, these are significantly further away. So we're more than satisfied in that regard, Councillor.
Councillor Hunt, are you happy with the replies?
Yeah, I am, Mr. Ball. Thank you for that. It's important to have a better understanding. Just one quick come back on the policy. Is it an interpretation of your very experienced colleagues and yourself, of course? I got the utmost admiration for the work you do, Mr. Ball, but that's what I was trying to find out. And I appreciate your responses, and they are spot on as always. But is it an interpretation with using the policy SC1? So it's not a hard and fast. It's something that you would work with to try and get the right result, in your opinion. That's what I was trying to ask, really. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, policies hard and fast. I mean, in general terms, you know, yes, they are quite hard and fast, but there's always interpretation of those policies that you need to apply. So in policy SC1, there are, or put me on the spot, I think it's 12 exemptions within there, within which you seek to consider whether or not they are acceptable. So one of them relates to small scale development adjoining settlement limits, which we've discussed in previous committees. And then there's interpretation about, well, what does small scale mean, for example? So there's always interpretation. Ultimately, you know, that old adage, every application, every consideration on its merits, and we have to review each proposal to see whether we feel it's in line with that policy and indeed the whole plan, because each policy is taken on its own and as part of the whole local development plan. But for this one, which is what we're debating, we're more than happy it's policy compliant.
Okay. As always, Councillor Hunt, if any member disagrees with officers, that's what the committee is there for. So we can always challenge or whatever, but bear in mind, but these are the policies that the councillors have actually voted for. Now, before I bring Councillor Misen in, I would just like to say as well, from experience, I have a sports field less than 100 yards away from residents in my ward. I haven't had a single complaint. So just for a little bit of soothe, as they say. Councillor Misen, you wish to say something?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I did put my hand down because that's what I was going to say anyway. I have a number of friends who live in very close proximity to a number of these 2, 3, 4G pitches, and as exactly as you, they don't bother with the sound or the light at all. It's perfectly acceptable.
Well, thank you for that. It is always helpful to members of the committee to hear these things firsthand from other members. You know, we all have ward residents who want a nice quiet life, and we're here to try and help them have it. So thank you very much for that. Anybody else wishing to say anything on this application? I don't see it. So I'm going to go to the recommendation then on page 21 to approve this application with the conditions following, bearing in mind that there was a change on the amendment sheet, so that must be taken into account. Could I have someone to propose that?
I'm happy to propose it, Chair.
Oh, thank you. Somebody to second?
I second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Misen. Okay, Tammy, if you could take the roll call of voting members and ask them, A, if they've been present throughout the whole meeting and they haven't dropped out through IT or whatever, and B, if they're happy to approve, abstain or vote against. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Steve, could you return the screen to normal, please? Thank you. I'll start with yourself, Chair. Councillor Suzanne Paterson, how do you wish to vote, and have you been present for the whole of this item?
I have been present for the whole item and I wish to vote with the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Sean Percy, please, same questions to yourself.
Yes, I've been present for the whole item and I'll be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Same questions to the following councillors, please. Councillor Chris Jones.
Yes, Sammy, I've been present the whole item and I'll be voting for them.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Yes, Tammy, I've been present for the whole meeting and I'll be voting for.
Thank you. Councillor Rydian Mason.
Yeah, I've been present for the whole meeting, Tammy, and I'll be voting for.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ross Davis, you have an interest, so you're not voting for this item, is that correct? Councillor Davis? Okay, she's left for this item, Chair. Councillor Steve Hunt, have you been present for the whole of the item and how do you wish to vote, please?
Yes, Tommy, I've been present for the whole item and I'll be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Arwyn Woolcock.
Yes, Chair, I confirm that I've been present for the entire agenda item and I'll be voting in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Prothero.
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, I confirm I've been present for the whole item and I will be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Williams.
Yes, Chair, I just confirm I've been present for the agenda item and I approve the recommendation.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Suzanne Renkers.
I've been present for the whole of the agenda item and I'm voting for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, that application is approved.
Oh, thank you very much, members. I'm sure that's going to be another valued addition to the facilities within Neath Port Talbot. So having said that, I'm going to take you on to agenda item 5, which is item P 2020/0758, which is a change of use from an existing domestic garage to a beauty treatment room and storage. This item is voted for approval. And just to give you a bit of background, local members did object in the first instance to this, and they asked for it to come to a call-in panel, which Mr. Ball and I held and agreed that it should come to committee. Things have moved along since then, and the highways have changed slightly. So I would have expected to see the ward members here today, but we do have a ward member here on our committee. So Councillor Dennis Keogh is going to actually hold the fort for the ward there. But I would also like to welcome again the speaker, Samara Richards. And as soon as Mr. Ball has taken us through the application, I will come to you, Samara, and then Tammy will time you 5 minutes and you may address the committee and put your case as to why you think this should be approved. So, Mr. Ball, please, would you take the committee through the report, please?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair. Is the screen showing now for you?
Yes, thank
members?
you. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you very much.
We're still on the rugby field, though.
No, that's fine. I'm sorry. I was the trouble is moving all different things around different screens.
Don't worry.
And trying
Don't
to
worry.
Make sure I can see everything I'm doing without you seeing me. Right, so thanks. So this is application P 2020-0758. As you've stated, it's the change of use of an existing domestic garage at the bottom of the applicant's garden to a beauty treatment room together with storage. So it's a mixed residential but also beauty treatment room. The The actual site is 21 Broad Street on Port Talbot, which is a corner property, and the garage fronts onto York Place, which probably best to show the photograph. So this is existing property 21 Broad Street, and this is the garage in question. The garage door will be retained, completely no changes here, and you can note the side gate that accesses off York Place. Also note that's referred to in the highway matters in terms of the rear access lane, and again looking across just in terms of the street. And this is the existing garage building. So it's, as you're coming off York Place, you've got an existing garage door, an existing door into the garage, and you've got an existing window, and you've got existing decking. The proposal is for effectively this part of the garage where my cursor is to be retained as domestic storage, and for this window to be changed to a door, allowing access off the decking area for a beauty room. That's shown on the drawings here. So you've got garage roller shutter door being retained, the store separated off here, and then the creation of the beauty room with the door, as I've talked about here, off the decking. So the application itself, as you've indicated, Chair, was a matter that was reported to a delegated panel. The 3 ward members have all expressed concerns in respect of the potential impact on parking and highway safety within the area. At the delegated panel stage, there was concern had been expressed by the highway officer, or an objection had been raised in respect of where the parking was and the impact on the nearby lane. The things have moved on, and I'll cover that very briefly in a minute, and no doubt as part of the discussions. And we do have the highways officer here to explain any issues as well. So in terms of impact and visuality, as the presentation has shown, the alteration of the garage itself are minor, and the only changes are within, facing the garden, and they are not considered to have any adverse impact in terms of design or visual appearance of the structure. So there's no adverse impact or objections raised in terms of visual amenity. Similarly, in terms of residential amenity, there is some potential, for example, for the patio doors to increase overlooking, but subject to, a condition requiring them to be obscurely glazed, we're satisfied that there would be no unacceptable impacts as a consequence. In terms of noise and disturbance, if this was a full-time intensive activity, this would be unlikely to be an acceptable location for this, both insofar as it should normally, intense use such as that should normally be somewhere else, such as a retail area. But in terms of the relatively low level of intensity for 4 customers operating Monday to Fridays and the shorter hours on Saturdays, 10 till 1, we're generally content that would be unlikely to have an adverse impact on amenity itself, not least because it would be the comings and goings would be the only issues. But what we have imposed through a condition is that there should be a maximum number of customers each day, together with pre-booking appointments, and only one number of customer allowed on the premises at any one time, because those conditions are necessary to ensure that it is a low level intensity of use that would not have an adverse impact. But in addition to that, because of the potential to have adverse impacts, and as well as the highway safety issues I'll come to later, we do feel that it is appropriate to have a temporary condition, which is 2 years for the date of consent, which would allow effectively an assessment to be made at a later date of whether the controls have been put in place and the intensity of use of this property in the proposed way is acceptable as we believe it would be. But the 2-year temporary period, and it's not unusual for us to put such a consent on, allows us to consider that through the 2-year period, and if the applicant were to request it be extended, we would have the opportunity then to consider whether there'd been any complaints, for example, that have been raised that raise issues that raise concerns that the use should not be allowed in this location. Subject to those conditions and the fact that there's no objection, for example, from environmental health, we are generally content that the temporary consent proposed would make it acceptable in terms of impacts on residential amenity. In terms of parking issues, as I say, they're the primary issues that have been considered and expressed concern locally from the local ward members. And as the report says, there was initially an objection from highways, and it was based upon the applicant's statement that there would be ample parking, but any parking for users of the premises in terms of clients could, and it says here, which I assume could be parked in front of the garage doors, this will no longer be required. Now that statement was just a general statement made in response to potential for whether we need to provide additional parking for the use. But that did actually raise concerns from the highway officer, because if you look at the photo in front of us, if they were indeed to park in front of that garage door where the dropped curb is, on the right hand side of the picture you'll see the rear access lane, and if someone was exiting that lane and looking right, and a car was parked immediately in front of this garage door, then that would obscure visibility and therefore raise concerns. And highways did express concerns about that. Now, from a planning officer perspective, we understood those concerns, but we are also very aware that there are no existing restrictions, for example, double yellow lines in front of that garage, which would actually prevent people parking there at present. So we felt at that stage it'd be very difficult for us to object on that basis anyway, because we don't have any control over that. We did look at issues to do with whether you could put double yellow lines out, for example, but actually that would not only require a traffic regulation order, but it would also take away other parking spaces opposite that junction in front of other residential properties. And we felt that that's probably not the most appropriate way forward. But what we did, we talked to highways officers at the time, and because the garage door is being retained, and because it is a low level use, and because the applicant would have a degree of control over her clients through ensuring that they are aware of the concerns, we felt, and the highway officer satisfied, that provided a condition imposed requiring a small sign to be placed on indicating that the garage is in constant use and not to park here, then that, in association with the fact that the client has control, or the applicant has control over her clients, would be sufficient to protect this visibility effectively from the likelihood of people parking in front of that garage. And on that basis, there's no objection from us in planning, or indeed from highways, in terms of the impact of this proposal on visibility in terms of highway safety coming from that lane. In addition, in terms of parking standards and the like, because this is a low level, low intensity of use with maximum 4 customers spread out over the day in an area which does have a reasonable amount of unrestricted on-street parking, we're satisfied that it would be we would not be able to make any recommendation for refusal on the basis of an impact on highway safety because of an absence of an additional parking space, for example. Ultimately, if people parked from this use, or indeed any use on the street, you'd have to demonstrate that that in itself would have a likely adverse impact on a safe and free flow of traffic or visibility. And in this case, given the availability of parking in the area, we are quite satisfied that it would be very difficult. For example, as you can see outside the property, it already has a number of potential opportunities for parking, indeed on both sides of this street on York Place, to the extent that we'd find it very difficult to sustain an objection on highway safety and parking grounds. So accordingly, the recommendation before you is that, subject to conditions restricting intensive use and a limitation, as I said, to a 2-year temporary permission to allow an assessment of both the impact on highway safety and residential amenity, that this proposal would be in accordance with policy, and therefore the recommendation is to approve. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Ball. I'll now come to Samara Richards, who's wishing to speak in support of this application today. I'm going to hand you over to Tammy Davis, who's our Democratic Service Officer, and she runs the clock. So she'll tell you when it's a minute to go. And at the end of 5 minutes, I'm afraid we do have to cut you off whether you're finished or not, because the rule is 5 minutes. So make yourself comfortable and start in your own time, and then Tammy will start the clock. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Just to pick up on it, it's to do with obviously with the parking. For myself now, obviously I work by myself. I don't employ anybody. My main thing, I do lashes, so I have clients in with me for about 2 hours at a time. So basically, once I finish with that client, I need 15 minutes to clean before the next client, and I don't have walk-ins. It's all appointment only. So then if I need 15 minutes to clean between each client, then there'll be no crossover with parking. And also I heard about the roller door as well. That obviously, because I'm on the end, there is quite a lot of parking on the end and on the opposite side. Now, my hours of work, because I've got 2 small children in school, I'll only be working through the day. Now, my street is really quiet through the day because the majority of people are working through the day. So I don't think there would be a lot of effect, you know, with the residents, basically. Yeah, so to be honest, that was pretty much it. My main concern was for you to know about the parking situation and that I would only physically have 1 client in. And then, as I said, it's only really around 4 clients maximum a day.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to use your full 5 minutes. If you think you've said everything that you came to say, that's perfectly okay. Thank you very much for coming, and we'll proceed with the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay then, so members of the committee, oh no, beg your pardon, Councillor Keogh is the local ward member. I can see Councillor Hunt and another one we'll get to you after the ward member, Councillor Keogh, who is actually a member of the committee. So Councillor Keogh.
Thank you, Chair. Right, the reason we objected to this in the beginning is because of the recommendation at the time that Highways objected to it. And we thought, well, if planning is not going to take any notice of a recommendation of planning, what is the point of having a recommendation? But the main concern is over the parking. I lived in Broad Street for 23 years up until 5 years ago. Now, when I lived there, parking was pretty bad. And on times it is horrendous, especially when school is there. And it was even worse when Dyffryn Lower was there, but no longer. Dyffryn has now gone. But we have complaints on a regular basis from constituents in the area, from Grange Street, Beverley Street, York Place, and Broad Street itself. So that's what we were concerned about, was the amount of parking in there, you know, because when the school is there, we have had near misses. I admit that is due to the times when the children are being dropped off in the morning and being picked up in the night. And in fact, a lot of money was spent on improving safety in the school when we were governors of that school. Now, in view, as I'm here on my own this morning to defend it, I have listened to what Mr. Ball has to say, and I've listened to Samara. And in view of the fact that she only has basically 4 clients a day, I don't see that being a problem, and therefore I withdraw my objection to it.
Oh, right, okay. Thank you, Councillor. I have got an indication from Councillor Hunt, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was important that we heard from Samara today and Councillor Keogh, and I'm pleased that Councillor Keogh has withdrawn his objection. I just wanted to say the Planning Committee, as you will know, Chair, comes under a lot of pressure from many reasons and people and developers. In this instance, I want to take my hat off, if I had one, to yourself and the officers, because this is something that really shows, given where we are in the coronavirus and everything else in the world going on, this was an easy application for them from Highways in the beginning, just to refuse, sitting here today for a refusal. The officers have worked with Samara and the Highways to find a solution, to make this application happen. She's a young mum trying to, Samara, I don't know if it's a time to start a business mind, but good luck to you on it if you get approval. But this is where officers have shown their apathy and help towards Samara in such a project that is important, obviously for her and for us. So I will be 100% supporting the officer's recommendation today. And I thank Steve Ball and his colleagues and yourself for bringing this and explaining and all the what is in the report. I appreciate that. And thank you, Dennis, for what you have said also. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunt. I have Councillor Wilcock also indicating, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have no problem with this, to be perfectly honest, Chair. I see this as it's been well managed. I think the conditions are there to manage the traffic. I'm just wondering, though, whether it would help the situation, and perhaps Mr. Davis from Highways could answer this. Would it also, Mr. Davis, be through you, Chair, be helpful, perhaps, to put a H-bar outside the entrance to the garage itself? I don't want to put Mrs. Richards to any additional cost, although I don't think it's a huge sum to place a H-bar. But not only would it protect the garage, but it would protect that junction as well. Now, I do appreciate that a H-bar is not mandatory, it's not enforceable, but it would protect not only the garage entrance, but the lane itself as well. If it discourages people from parking in front of the garage, then perhaps it would be an additional help. Those are the points that I wanted to make, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Mr. Davis, would you like to please give your comments back to Councillor Wilcock?
Well, as Councillor Wilcock indicated, it obviously would provide a visual deterrent. However, as he also indicated, it's not enforceable. So if someone was to park there, there wouldn't be, it's not an enforceable sort of road marking. Okay. It's a visual deterrent, but we felt that the steps that have been proposed by the planning department would be suffice in this instance to deter people from parking, at that location.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Councillor Wilcock, are you happy with Councillor?
Perfectly happy with that, Chair. Yeah, more than happy. Yeah.
Also, on this point, we do have the proprietor's viewpoint that she will be advising her clients when they do the booking, because it's all going to be done before they arrive, that they may not park in front of the garage. So it's in her own interest to make sure that her customers do not disobey that instruction. So I've got Councillor Misen and Vice Chair Sean Percy. So Councillor Percy, please.
Councillor Misen's been waiting a little while, Chair, so I don't know whether
I'm sorry, I had my screen.
Oh, it's okay, Sean, go on. That's all right.
Sorry, Councillor, I did have my screen on a different setting and I was having trouble seeing the hands. So I apologise, Councillor Misen. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, well, as Dennis knows, I lived in number 22 for years, 22 Broad Street. Talking about school time, as he knows, my father was a caretaker of Dyffryn Lower. So I know that there's never been a parking issue there, really, even when there's two schools there, which is Central across the road and Dyffryn Lower. And as for the lane, I've never seen a problem with that either. It's not really used as a rat run from Grange Street or whatever, There's the lane behind York Place and the lane behind Grange Street. So there's plenty of parking there, and I'd be fully supportive of Samara's application. I don't see a problem with highways there at all.
Thank you, Councillor, for your comments there. Vice Chair, Councillor Sean Percy.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a brief comment really on the common sense, restrictions and conditions that have been put in place for this to go ahead. I've got to echo Councillor Hunt, really. We need to be encouraging people to be enterprising and working from home at the moment, and this just seems like something that we should definitely be supporting, and I've certainly not got any objections from that one single client at the time.
Okay. Yes, I can't see anybody other than Dennis Keogh who wishes to come back. Councillor Keogh?
Yes, thank you, Chair. While I wish Samara all the very, very best, I think this is not a planning issue, but it's a little bit of advice I'm going to give her, is that she should check the legality of it, and I tell you for why. There are covenants on all the houses in Broad Street about businesses, because it's in my title deeds that you can't start a business there, because there are covenants that was laid down by the late Charlotte Talbot's estate in 1906. So just a bit of advice, just check it just in case. Thank you for that.
All right, Councillor Keogh, you're quite right to say that anything to do with a covenant is not a planning issue, so it's not something we can take into account, but Councillor Keogh has mentioned it to you. Perhaps you wish to act on his advice. But with regards to allowing small businesses to flourish in times like this, well, I think I agree with other members of the committee today that the system has actually worked here. We come in here to discuss it. You're going to have a vote on it now. The facility is there for it to be brought to committee, which it was. So if nobody else has anything to say, I will draw you to the recommendations on page 30 with the conditions listed afterwards, that this is recommended for approval. Could I have someone to propose that we accept that?
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Wilcock, was that you? Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. And someone to second, please.
I'll second, Chair.
Councillor Hunt, thank you very much. I'm going to go back to Tammy Davis now to do the roll call of voting members to ask if they've been present for the whole item and which way they wish to vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with yourself, Chair. Have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to vote?
I have been present for the whole item and wish to vote with the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. And Vice Chair, Councillor Sean Percy, please.
I've been present for the whole item and I'll be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you. Same questions too. Councillor Chris Jones, please.
Thank you, Tammy. Yes, I've been present the whole item and I'll vote in for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Yes, Tammy, I have been present for the whole meeting and I shall be voting for.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Rydian Mason.
Yeah, I've been present for the whole item, Tammy, and I'll be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ros Davis, please.
I've been present for the whole item and I'm voting for the recommendation. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. Councillor Steve Hunt.
I have been here for the whole item and I will be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Arwyn Wilcock.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I confirm that I've been present for the whole agenda item and I will be voting in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mark Prothero.
Thank you, Tammy. Yes, I can confirm I've been present for the whole item and I will be fully supporting the recommendation and I wish Samara all the very best with her endeavours.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chris Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I've been present for the whole item and I approve the recommendation and also my best wishes to her as an entrepreneur and good luck to her for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Suzanne Renkers, please.
I've been present for the whole item and I'm voting for the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Chair, that item was approved unanimously.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I would just like to add my well wishes to Samara. I think you can see that all, if not unanimously, the committee wish you well. So thank you for that, committee. We'll move on to agenda item 6 today, which is application P2020/0858. This is before us today as a sitting councillor resides at the same address. So Mr. Ball, you could just take them through the application.
Yes, of course. So I got the wrong place on my presentation. Yeah, as you said, Chair, this is an application that the only reason this has come before committee is because the applicant is related to a sitting councillor. It is the proposal for replacement and reciting existing septic tank and grey water treatment centre system at Cilpentan Farm and Llwyncelyn Road in Taigwaith. The plans in front of you show effectively you've got existing septic tank at the bottom right hand corner in the dots, and you've got a new septic tank being proposed and the new system in terms of connecting into it here. The application and recommendation is to approve because it's considered to be an upgrade to the existing system, subject to condition requiring a removal of the existing. No objections, subject to those conditions. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Showing your eloquence in the Welsh pronunciations again. Thank you. For an English person, it's pretty good. Okay. Anybody wishing to say anything about this application, please? No?
Happy to move the recommendation, Chair.
Oh, lovely. Right, we're moving along here. Hang on. That's brilliant. Okay, just a second. Just get to the recommendation on page 38. So the recommendation is on page 38 with the subsequent conditions. We've had a proposer from Councillor Wilcock, was it?
Yes.
Yes, madam.
Yes. Okay. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second that, Chair. Councillor Mason.
Okay. Tammy, if you could just take the committee through the voting.
Certainly, Chair. Start with yourself. How do you wish to vote?
I've been here all the way along, and I'll vote with the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Sean Percy, please.
Yeah, I've been present for the whole item and I'll be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillors Chris Jones.
Yes, Sammy, I've been here the whole item and voting for.
Thank you. Dennis Keogh.
Yes, Sammy, I've been here for the entire meeting and I'm voting for.
Thank you. Rydian Mason.
Yes, I've been here for the entire item and I'll be voting for the application.
Thanks. Ros Davis.
I have been here for the whole item and I'm voting in favour of the recommendation.
Diolch. Steve Hunt.
I have been here in attendance of this item and I've been voting for the recommendation.
Thank you. Arwyn Wilcock.
Yes, present for the whole item and voting in favour of the recommendation.
Thank you. Diolch. Mark Prothero.
Yes, thank you, Tammy. I've been here for the whole item and I will be voting for the recommendation.
Thank you. Chris Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I to confirm being present for the whole item, I will voted for the recommendation.
And finally, Suzanne Renkes.
Thank you. I've been present for the whole item and voting for the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. That application was also approved.
Thank you very much, Committee. I do understand that it's a bit of extra time to go through each individual item and ask the same questions, but we are a decision-making committee, not a recommendation to Cabinet. So I just want to make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's all the time, just to make sure that you understand the reason why I insist on going through that all the time. Okay, going back to the agenda then. Item 7 is urgent items. I do not have any urgent items, so I would thank you all for your attendance and ask committee members, as you've already been noted, there is a verbal update. So if you would, Tammy, do they remain in the meeting or do we leave and go to another one?
No. What we've, sorry, I know I'm not Tammy, sorry.
Oh, right. Yes, you take.
If everyone can leave this meeting, we'll stop the recording of this meeting and then we'll reconvene in the separate meeting, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm only the chair. What do I know? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for your attendance. And if you could rejoin for the verbal update, please. Thank you.
Steve,
see you all in a minute.
Do you need